So Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Sunday Bhagavatam class. We're going to continue reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2. Today we will begin from Shloka number 23. And if we have time, we will try and finish the section that goes up to Shloka number 29. But before we do that, we want to do a quick review of the 14 stages of bhakti that we spoke about from shlokas 16 to 22. This is in addition, or this is, you could say, a supplement or a more detailed explanation provided by Sripad Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he outlines the 14 different stages of progress in the path of bhakti. And this is a little bit different than the 9 overarching stages that we generally hear about. And those 9 stages is the stages that Sri Narada Muni goes through those stages as explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Pretty soon we'll talk about Narada Muni in Srimad Bhagavatam. So just to recollect our memory, the 14 stages of bhakti, starting with what is known as Satam Kripa. Satam Kripa means getting the, somehow or the other, we come in contact with devotees. Either the devotees may invite you to a class, or suddenly you see an invite for a Bhagavad Gita session on Facebook or Instagram, and pretty soon, soon after that, what are you doing? You're attending classes. So the Satam Kripa is the causeless mercy of the devotees. So one begins one's devotional service when one actually comes into contact, whether accidental, incidental, it doesn't matter. Somehow or the other, the Lord puts you in touch with the devotee, and your devotional journey begins from there. How does your service actually grow? How does your faith grow? In the beginning, we may not know much about devotion. We may not know much about the do's and don'ts of devotional service. We don't know anything about sadhana bhakti when we begin. But somehow or the other, we may be attracted to performing some service to the devotees, and this is called Mahat Seva. Especially if we are given an opportunity to provide service to a pure devotee of the Lord, then that really jettisons our ability to make very quick progress on the path of bhakti. So after that comes Shraddha, which is faith that develops when we serve a pure devotee or when we serve other devotees. What does it mean when we say faith develops when we serve other devotees? It's not about necessarily always being menial service. While it could be menial service, it could be also very important service. So for example, right now, the temple is planning to do a series on Sri Ramayana in the temple itself starting next Saturday. And for that, we have to call many souls who visited our temple during Janmashtami and Vaikuntha Ekadasi and New Year's Eve. And so many of you may have received a message from me asking you to please perform some calling seva and invite these souls to come and attend the classes in the temple. So it's going to be a wonderful experience for them. And whoever takes advantage of this offer, there is no cost to the person attending the session except for their time and maybe a little bit of taste. But if they do come to the temple, then you could say somehow or the other their spiritual journey has begun through the Satam Kripa of the devotee. So after Shraddha, what happens? You take Guru Padashraya. You genuinely seek the shelter at the feet of a Guru, at the lotus feet of a Guru. We all know there are 2 types of Gurus. There is a Shiksha Guru and the Diksha Guru. The Diksha Guru always is also your Shiksha Guru. But your Shiksha Guru need not always be your Diksha Guru. So Shiksha Guru is someone who guides you on the path of bhakti, who steers you, who coaches you, who corrects you, who gives you opportunity to serve, who gives you services, who gives you feedback, who gives you counseling, who gives you mentoring. Like this, you may have many, many Shiksha Gurus come and go in your life. You will always remember who they are because somehow or the other, they connected you to the temple, to the deities in the temple, to your guru, etc. So we are always eternally grateful to all those devotees who have come in our life and have somehow or the other brought us to this path of bhakti. So after Guru Padashraya, what happens? The next stage is you develop an eagerness to worship. So this is called bhajaneshu spraha. When you develop this eagerness to worship, slowly you begin the actual process of bhakti. You begin to perform bhakti. Um, so eagerness to worship followed by service. So this is called devotional service. Devotion plus service is actually bhakti. Devotion devoid of service is also a form of devotion, but it is not the highest form of devotion. We've always said if you love someone, you demonstrate your love for that someone through service. You don't stand at a distance. The mother never stands at a distance and tells their child, I love you, I love you, I love you. But if the child needs their help, they're never there. They're not there to take care of the child, to provide them nourishment, to shower them with their love and affection. So, love means service. It's just a natural inclination for a human being, for any Jivatma, to try and serve another Jiva. So, without service, bhakti is not complete. So, let us say you have started sincerely pursuing the path of bhakti where you're worshipping Vishnu or Krishna or Narayana. Then the next outcome is that anartha pagamam, which is slowly you will see the obstacles on the path um, are removed one by one. But in between that stage, there may be a lot of testing. The Lord has His own way of testing us, testing our seriousness, testing our commitment. So all inauspicious things are destroyed. And what happens? Because all of the impediments that may have been there, maybe internal impediments, maybe external impediments, we don't know. Many of us may face different kinds of impediments. So, what happens in the next stage? It is called nishtha, steadiness of worship, steadiness on the path, where you're no longer looking left or right. You're convinced that this is the path you have to follow. And you're ready to give up everything else for the sake of following this and this alone, including all other types of worship that you may have been performing earlier. But once you come to the stage, you recognize that worship of Krishna or Vishnu is the highest, which is actually what we will read today. Why worship of Vishnu is considered the highest. So after getting this taste, this ruchi, through the steadiness of your sadhana bhakti, then your heart is no longer attracted to things that take you away from Krishna. So this is a stage where you can be quite confident, although the fear is always lurking in the back of our mind. Will I ever go in the opposite direction? Of letting go of everything that I've made progress. Sometimes when you climb up a ladder, it takes a lot of effort. So similarly, on this path of bhakti also, you go through these stages and these stages take effort. And just when you think you're steady, disturbances come in your life. So we say the next stage is you develop this asakti, which is a very firm attachment to Krishna. And that leads to what is called rati, fondness for the devotees, fondness for Guru, fondness for Krishna. And that fondness culminates in prema, or devotional love, where you don't have any other motivation other than to serve and love Krishna. To have an opportunity to serve and love Krishna is actually very, very rare. And then you get darshan of the Lord. What kind of darshan is this? This is not necessarily an external darshan of the Lord. You see the Lord in everyone and everything. You experience the hands of God in everything that is happening to you in your life. And then that leads to Harer Madhurya Anubhava, which is tasting the sweetness of love for the Lord. So these are the 14 stages that have been enumerated in these shlokas from shloka 16 to 22. So we're going to begin today's class with shloka number 23. So requesting Prabhu to recite after me. Harish Prabhu.
Yes, ma'am.
Sattvam rajastama iti prakriteergunastaihi
Sattvam rajastama iti prakriteergunastaihi
yuktah parah purusha eka ihasya dhatte
yuktah parah purusha eka iyasya datte
Hityadaye hari virinchi hareti samnyaha
sthityadaye hari virinchi hareti samnyaha
Shreyamsi tatra khalu sattvatanonranam syuhu
shreyamsi tatra khalu sattvatanor nrinam syuh.
Word for word meaning. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Sattvam,
Sattvam, goodness.
Rajaha,
passion.
Tamaha,
the
darkness of ignorance.
Iti,
thus, Prakritehe, of the material nature. Gunaha, qualities. Taihi, by them. Yuktaha, associated with. Paraha, transcendental. Purushaha, the personality. Ekaha, one. Iha asya, of this material world. Dhatte, accepts. Sthiti adaye, for the matter of creation, maintenance and destruction, etc. Hari, Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. Virinchi, Brahma. Hara, Lord Shiva. Iti, thus. Samnyaha, different features. Shreyamsi, ultimate benefit. Tatra, therein. Khalu, of course. Sattva, goodness. Tanoho, form. Nranam, the human being. Syuhu, derived. Translation, the transcendental personality of Godhead is indirectly associated with the three modes of material nature. Namely, passion, goodness, and ignorance. And just for the material world's creation, maintenance, and destruction. He accepts the three qualitative forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Of these three, all human beings can derive ultimate benefit from Vishnu. The form of the quality of goodness. Excuse me. So in the previous section, Suta Goswami has glorified bhakti. Remember, this entire chapter is titled Divinity and Divine Service. Divine service has been glorified, and now divinity is going to be glorified. So, bhakti has been glorified, and now Bhagavan is going to be glorified. So, let us see what Prabhupada writes in the purport, and then we can discuss this. That Lord Sri Krishna, by his plenary parts, should be rendered devotional service as explained above, is confirmed by this statement. Lord Sri Krishna and all his plenary parts are Vishnu Tattva, or the Lordship of Godhead. From Sri Krishna, the next manifestation is Baladeva. From Baladeva is Sankarshana. From Sankarshana is Narayana. From Narayana, there is the second Sankarshana. And from this second Sankarshana, the Vishnu Purusha avatars. So, the distance between Lord Krishna and the Purusha avatars. Purusha avatars will come to shortly. The Vishnu, or the deity of the quality of goodness in the material world, is the Purusha avatar known as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, or Paramatma. Brahma is the deity of Rajas, passion, and Shiva of ignorance. They are the three departmental heads of the three qualities of this material world. Creation is made possible by Brahma's quality of passion and his endeavor. It is maintained by the goodness of Vishnu. And when it requires to be destroyed, Lord Shiva does it by the Tandava Nritya. The materialists and the foolish human beings worship Brahma and Shiva respectively. But the pure transcendentalists worship the form of goodness, Vishnu, in his various forms. Vishnu is manifested by his millions and billions of integrated forms and separated forms. The integrated forms are called Godhead, and the separated forms are called the living entities or the jivas. Both the jivas and Godhead have their original spiritual forms. So Prabhupada is explaining all of us have an original spiritual form. So we've left that form behind, and the soul has entered this material cosmos and taken on a material form. But all of us have an original spiritual body, just as the Lord has a spiritual body. Jivas are sometimes subjected to the control of material energy, but the Vishnu forms are always controllers of this energy. So what's the difference between God and the Jivatma? The Lord is always in control. The Jivatma, when he is separated from the Lord, he comes under the control of Lord's other energy called Maya. When Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, appears in the material world, he comes to deliver the conditioned living beings who are under the material energy. Such living beings appear in the material world with intentions of being lords, and thus they become entrapped by the three modes of nature. Somehow or the other, we think we want to imitate the Supreme Lord, and when we have this desire to imitate the Supreme Lord, then we must come to a place where we can experiment with trying to be the controller. But much to our chagrin, we get extremely frustrated trying to be the controller. And because of the three modes of material nature, we are always entrapped. As such, the living entities have to change their material coverings for undergoing different terms of imprisonment. So, anytime you are in this material cosmos, you are in jail. It's just that your jail cell may differ when you move from body to body. So the quality of the jail cell that you occupy may change. But nevertheless, all of us are imprisoned here under the three gunas. The prison house of the material world is created by Brahma under the instruction of the personality of Godhead. And at the conclusion of a kalpa, the whole thing is destroyed by Shiva. But as far as maintenance of the prison house is concerned, it is done by Vishnu, as much as the state prison house is maintained by the state. Anyone, therefore, who wishes to get out of this prison house of material existence, which is full of miseries like a repetition of birth, death, disease, and old age, must please Lord Vishnu for such liberation. Lord Vishnu is worshipped by devotional service only. And if anyone has to continue prison life in the material world, he may ask for relative facilities for temporary relief from the different demigods like Shiva, Brahma, Indra, and Varuna. No demigod, however, can release the imprisoned living being from the conditioned life of material existence. This can be done only by Vishnu. Therefore, the ultimate benefit may be derived from Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. Why does Srila Prabhupada say, and Acharya say, that worshipping the demigods is not very intelligent? Why? Because if you worship the demigods, they can only give you material benefits. So they can upgrade your cell in the prison house. They can give you a bigger cell, they can give you better facilities, but they cannot release you from prison. So if a demigod cannot release you from this prison that you're trapped in, what is the point of worshipping the demigods? You're only making your cell more comfortable. Therefore, these guna avatars, Sattva, Raja, and Tamas, the Sattva guna represented by Lord Vishnu is considered the best deity to worship because Vishnu can give you liberation. Shiva and Brahma cannot give you liberation. Indra and Varuna cannot give you liberation. They can only give you some material benefits. Any material benefits will last as long as you are alive. So, what's the point of worshipping the demigods if they cannot give you what you most need in your life, which is the Supreme Lord? Therefore, Prabhupada is writing in the purport, only unintelligent people worship demigods. Why is Prabhupada writing that? Because Lord himself has said that in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord himself has said that those who worship demigods are not very intelligent. Why is the Lord saying they are not very intelligent? Instead of worshipping somebody who can open the door of the prison cell and release you, you are worshipping somebody and telling them, can you make my prison cell? Can you paint the bars with gold? Or can you paint the bars with silver? Or can you put a better facility for me inside this prison? Now, only those who have understood that this is a prison house are going to do something to try and get out of it. Those who have not understood that they are in this prison house, then they are free to worship the demigods. They can try and make their condition a little bit better. So liberation can only be given by Vishnu. Therefore, in this shloka, Suta Goswami is telling the sages, as he is glorifying, that of all the deities there are, the only deity that should be worshipped is Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. So among the guna avatars, because each of these deities, the Lord himself becomes Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. He has to oversee these three gunas and therefore he takes these roles. But among these three gunas, the Sattva Gun represented by Lord Vishnu is the best deity to worship among the three Gunavatars. So Vishnu here also means Krishna. We will come, if we have time, we'll look at a diagram of the expansions of the Lord. I found one today. If that is helpful, we can look at it. So let's go to the next shloka, which is shloka number 24. Parthiva daruno dhumaha
Parthiva daruno dhumaha
Tasmadagnistrayimayah
Tasmad Trayimayah.
Tamasastu rajastasmat
Tamasastu rajastasmat.
Sattvam yad brahma darshanam
Sattvam yad brahma darshanam.
Parthivat,
Parthiva.
from earth.
From earth.
Darunaha,
Darunoho.
darunaha,
Darunaha.
firewood.
Firewood.
Dhumaha,
Dhumaha.
smoke.
Smoke.
Tasmat,
Tasmat.
from that.
From that.
Agnihi,
Agnihi.
fire.
Fire.
Trayi,
Trayi.
Vedic sacrifices.
Vedic sacrifices.
Mayaha,
Mayaha.
made of.
Made of.
Tamasaha,
Tamasaha.
the mode of ignorance.
The mode of ignorance.
Two,
Two.
but.
But.
Rajaha,
Rajaha.
the mode of passion.
The mode of passion.
Tasmat,
Tasmat.
from that.
From that.
Sattvam,
Sattvam.
the mode of goodness.
The mode of goodness.
Yat,
Yat.
which.
Which.
Brahma,
Brahma.
the absolute truth.
The absolute truth.
Darshanam,
Darshanam.
realization.
Realization.
Translation. Firewood is a transformation of earth,
Firewood is a transformation of earth.
but smoke is better than the raw wood.
But smoke is better than the raw wood.
And fire is still better,
And fire is still better.
for by fire
For by fire,
we can derive the benefits of superior knowledge
we can derive the benefits of superior knowledge
through Vedic sacrifices.
through the Vedic sacrifices.
Similarly,
passion,
rajas,
rajas,
is better than ignorance, tamas.
is better than the ignorance, tamas.
But goodness,
goodness,
sattva,
is
best, because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth.
One can come to realize the absolute truth.
So here, Sutta Goswami is using an analogy of firewood, smoke, and fire to explain the difference between the three guna avatars. So we'll read the purport and then we can understand the shloka a little bit better. So Prabhupada writes, as explained above, one can get released from the conditioned life of material existence by devotional service to the personality of Godhead. It is further comprehended herein that one has to rise to the platform of the mode of goodness, sattva, so that one can be eligible for the devotional service of the Lord, which means to perform bhakti, you should be in the sattva gun stage. But if there are impediments on the progressive path, anyone, even from the platform of tamas, can gradually rise to the sattva platform by the expert direction of the spiritual master. So we need not worry, because we may all think, oh, but I am not in the mode of goodness all the time. That's okay. That's when spiritual masters come into your life, and under their guidance and direction, you make gradual progress until you come to the sattva gun state. Sincere candidates must therefore approach an expert spiritual master for such a progressive march. And the bona fide expert spiritual master is competent to direct a disciple from any stage of life, tamas, rajas, or sattva. It is a mistake, therefore, to consider that worship of any quality or any form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is equally beneficial. Except Vishnu, all separated forms are manifested under the conditions of material energy, and therefore the forms of material energy cannot help anyone to rise to the platform of sattva, which alone can liberate a person from material bondage. So, Maya Devi cannot help you connect to Krishna. So, you have to at least come to the stage of sattva gun before you have an opportunity to perform bhakti. The uncivilized state of life, or the life of lower animals, is controlled by the mode of tamas. The civilized life of man, with a passion for various types of material benefits, is the state of rajas. The rajas stage of life gives a slight clue to the realization of the absolute truth in the form of fine sentiments in philosophy, art, and culture with moral and ethical principles. But the mode of sattva is a still higher stage of material quality, which actually helps one in realizing the absolute truth. So Prabhupada is explaining that even if you are predominantly under the influence of Rajagun, it is better than you being under the influence of Tamogun. Because even under the influence of Rajagun, if you come in touch with aspects like philosophy, art, and culture, you may get attracted to learning about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, there is a qualitative difference between the different kinds of worshipping methods as well as the respective results derived from the predominating deities, namely Brahma, Vishnu, and Hara. Hara here meaning Krishna. So if you worship Shiva, you don't get liberation. If you worship Lord Brahma, you don't get liberation. So if you really want to get out of prison, you have to worship Vishnu. So here, Vishnu is compared to fire or the mode of goodness. And Lord Shiva is covered to the firewood, and Lord Brahma is covered to the smoke, compared to the smoke. Now, logically, if you look at this, we may think firewood is definitely better than smoke because smoke cannot produce fire, but firewood can produce fire. With the help of firewood, you can generate fire. From smoke, you cannot generate fire. So why is smoke considered? There are two different ways to look at it. I was listening to His Grace Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's class just before this. So I'm just recollecting what Prabhu said in the class. So on the one hand, smoke is considered to be superior to the firewood because firewood is closest to the earth. It's in its grossest form. Firewood is inert. Smoke has some quality. It moves. But at the same time, why is Shiva considered to be superior to Brahma? So if Brahma represents the smoke and Shiva represents the firewood, still Shiva is considered to be superior to Brahma because from firewood you can generate fire. From smoke one cannot generate fire. Although Shiva technically represents the Tamogun, still as it comes to the Guna avatars, Shiva is considered to be superior to Brahma and Vishnu is superior to Shiva in this trinity of the gunas. So among the three gunas, we should worship Lord Vishnu. That's the recommendation for us, and the recommendation is quite straightforward because neither Shiva nor Brahma can offer you liberation. Shiva can commute your sentence, but he still cannot open the doors to the spiritual world. However, to get to the spiritual world, you have to pass through Shiva Dham. That is clearly stated in the Shastras. With that, we come to shloka number 25. Bhejire munayothagre
Bhejire munayothagre
Bhagavantam adokshajam
Bhagavantam adokshajam
Sattvam vishuddham kshemaya
Sattvam vishuddham kshemaya
Kalpante yenutaniha
Kalpante ye nutaniha.
Bhejire Bhejire
Bhejire,
rendered service unto
rendered service unto
Munayaha
Munayaha,
sages
sages,
Atha
Atha,
thus
thus,
Agre
Agre
previously,
previously,
Bhagavantam,
Bhagavantam,
unto the personality of Godhead,
unto the personality of Godhead,
Adhokshajam,
Adokshajam,
transcendence,
transcendence,
Sattvam,
Sattvam,
existence,
existence,
Vishuddham,
Vishuddham,
above the three modes of nature,
above the three modes of nature,
Kshemaya,
Kshemaya,
to derive the ultimate benefit,
to derive the ultimate benefit,
Kalpante,
Kalpante,
deserve,
deserve,
Ye,
Ye,
those,
those,
Anu,
Anu,
follow,
follow,
Tan,
Tan,
those,
those,
Iha,
Iha,
in this material world.
in this material world.
Translation. Previously,
Previously,
all the great sages
all the great sages
rendered service
rendered service
unto the personality of Godhead
unto the personality of Godhead
due to his existence
due to his existence
above the three modes of material nature.
above the three modes of material nature.
They worshipped him
They worshipped him
to become free from material conditions
to become free from material conditions
and thus derive the ultimate benefit.
and thus derive the ultimate benefit.
Whoever follows such great authorities
Whoever follows such great authorities
is also eligible for liberation from the material world.
is also eligible for liberation from the material world.
So here, Sutta Goswami is saying, as if to emphasize what he has already stated in the prior two shlokas, that not only is he saying that we should all worship Lord Vishnu among the Gunavatars, but also all great sages have done the same thing. Because if we were to follow in the footsteps of great sages, then we are also following in the footsteps of liberation. And when we follow the instructions of great personalities, bona fide great personalities, then we also become eligible for liberation from the material world. So Sutta Goswami is saying these sages worshipped who? Vishnu. To get the ultimate benefit. And therefore, if at all we wanted to follow someone, we should follow in the footsteps of such great sages. So we will come to the demigod section in Shloka 26. So I'll reserve my comments till then. So we'll read Prabhupada's purport. The purpose of performing religion is neither to profit by material gain, nor to get the simple knowledge of discerning matter from spirit. Why do we practice bhakti, or why do we follow the instructions in the scriptures? It's not because we want material benefits, because as long as we want material benefits, we have to remain in this jail. The ultimate aim of religious performances is to release oneself from the material bondage and regain the life of freedom in the transcendental world, where the personality of Godhead is the supreme person. So the question is, why would we want to remain prisoners here? Why do we want to keep extending our prison sentence? Why is it that we don't want freedom to go back to the spiritual world, where we are eternally servitors of the spiritual master and the supreme personality of Godhead? So Prabhupada is writing, laws of religion, therefore, are directly enacted by the personality of Godhead, and except for the Mahajanas, or the authorized agents of the Lord, no one knows the purpose of religion. There are 12 particular agents of the Lord who know the purpose of religion, and all of them render transcendental service unto him. Persons who desire their own good may follow these Mahajanas and thus attain the supreme benefit. So the 12 Mahajanas include Shiva, Lord Brahma, the Sanat Kumaras, Bali Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Kapila Muni, Shukadev Goswami, Yamaraj. So Prabhupada is saying, and this verse is also stating, that if we don't believe that Vishnu is the Supreme Lord, at least we should have faith in great personalities like these 12 Mahajans. And if we were to sincerely follow in their footsteps, then we will be ultimately benefited. So in Shloka 23, Vishnu is the topmost among the three deities and among the Gunavatars. Goodness is the best foundation for us to learn to practice bhakti. That was discussed in Shloka 24. And here in Shloka 25, liberation is being spoken about. If we really want liberation, we should follow in the footsteps of great rishis and mahajans. So now we come to an interesting section where Sutta Goswami talks about why we should not worship demigods and why we should reject demigod worship. So this is shloka number 26. Mumukshavo ghora rupan
Mumukshavo ghora rupan
hitva bhutapatinatha
itva bhutapatin atha
narayana kala shantah
narayana kala shanta
bhajantyanassuyavah.
bhajantyana suyavaha
Mumukshavaha,
mumukshavaha,
persons desiring liberation.
persons desiring liberation.
Ghora,
Ghora,
horrible, ghastly.
horrible, ghastly.
Rupan,
Rupan,
forms like that.
forms like that.
Hitva,
Itva,
rejecting.
rejecting.
Bhutapatin,
Bhutapatin,
demigods.
demigods.
Atha,
Atha,
for this reason.
for this reason.
Narayana,
Narayana,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Kalaha,
Kalaha,
plenary portions.
plenary portions.
Shantaha,
Shantaha,
all blissful.
all blissful.
Bhajanti,
Bhajanti,
to worship.
to worship.
He,
He,
certainly.
certainly.
Anasuyavaha,
Anasuyavaha,
non-envious.
non-envious.
Those who are serious about liberation
Those who are serious about liberation
are certainly non-envious,
are certainly non-envious,
and they respect all.
and they respect all.
Yet
Yet
they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods
they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods
and worship only
and worship only
the all blissful forms of Lord Vishnu
the all blissful forms of Lord Vishnu
and his plenary portions.
and its plenary portions.
So here, please forgive me, I got a bad cough. So here, Sutta Goswami is telling the sages that if you're serious about liberation, then automatically you have to have this quality of anasuyavaha, not being envious of the Supreme Lord. And not being envious of the Supreme Lord, we reject the worship. And he's not just saying worship of demigods, he's just saying the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods. A lot of the demigods, if you see their form, especially the various forms of Devi, they can be quite gory. They have a lot of weapons in their hands. There are some demigods who are depicted drinking blood, holding beheaded forms. So a lot of the demigods carry weapons. So who is going to be attracted to demigods who carry weapons? Those who want something from them, something material from them. Why would somebody who is predominantly in Sattva Gun be worshipping such a demigod? Isn't it quite fearful? Isn't it quite horrible? Therefore, those who are attracted, who are in Sattva Gun and are practicing bhakti, they are attracted to the peaceful form of Narayana, of Vishnu. Now you may argue, but Vishnu himself carries the Sudarshan Chakra. He comes as Lord Narasimha. Isn't Lord Narasimha's form very frightful? Yes, true. But then whenever Lord Vishnu has to get rid of the demoniac forces, he doesn't stay in that form permanently. He depicts this form temporarily and then he goes back to his peaceful, all blissful form of Lord Vishnu. So hence Sutta Goswami is saying, what's really the point of worshipping the demigods? And by the way, they are ghastly. Now, what is important to remember is, while those who are in Sattva Gun may reject the worship of demigods, they will always respect the demigods. The demigods are also considered to be devotees of the Lord, however, they are not considered to be pure devotees. There may be exceptions here. I've heard it said many times in other senior Vaishnava classes that our current Brahmaji is considered to be a pure devotee. But not all gods, demigods, are considered to be pure devotees. Why is that? All demigods are also in Sattva Gun, because if they're not in Sattva Gun, how will they worship Lord Vishnu? So all the demigods are always worshipping Lord Vishnu. So that means they must be in Sattva Gun. So how is it that they are not considered pure devotees then? Because they have some material desires of controllership. So Ishvara means controller. So all the demigods are considered Ishvaras with a small I. They have this need to control. Although they are devotees of the Lord, they have this tinge of this material desire. Therefore, they are not considered pure devotees, although they are also worshipping Lord Vishnu. Prabhupada writes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is the original person of the Vishnu categories, expands himself in two different categories, namely integrated plenary portions and separated parts and parcels. It's actually a little difficult to understand, but maybe if we can pull up that diagram shortly, it'll be a little easier to understand how these various manifestations of the Lord actually takes place. So two main categories: integrated plenary portions where the Lord himself expands himself, and then separated parts and parcels. The separated parts and parcels are you and me. The separated parts and parcels are the servitors, and the integrated plenary portions of Vishnu Tattvas are the worshipful objects of service. So if we need an object of worship, that object of worship is the Vishnu Tattvas. All demigods who are empowered by the Supreme Lord are also separated parts and parcels. So here Prabhupada is saying that even the demigods are considered to be Jivatmas. They are much more powerful than us. They have more capabilities than us. But nevertheless, they are also part and parcel of Vishnu, and therefore they are also Jivatmas. They are special Jivatmas. They occupy very high positions. So, for example, I was hearing Gauranga Darshan Prabhu use this beautiful analogy to explain why we would not worship demigods. So let us say in an audience you have a prime minister and the finance minister and the local MLA, and you meet them for the first time. As per protocol, who would you greet first? With all respect, you would greet the prime minister because you understand hierarchically he is the highest. You will not go and garland the MLA first, the local MLA first. You will first honor the prime minister, then perhaps the other ministers. So when you understand the hierarchy, you know how to deal with that hierarchy also. So similarly, since we understand the hierarchy of the demigods in relation to Vishnu, then we would offer all our worship to Vishnu first. and then we will offer our respects to the demigod. But we will not worship the demigod. All demigods who are empowered by the Supreme Lord are also separated parts and parcels. They do not belong to the categories of Vishnu Tattva. So none of the demigods are part of the Vishnu Tattva. The Vishnu Tattvas are living beings equally as powerful as the original form of the personality of Godhead, and they display different categories of power in consideration of different times and circumstances. So Prabhupada is writing here, they're almost as powerful as the Supreme Lord, but they are not the Supreme Lord. The separated parts and parcels are powerful by limitation. They do not have unlimited power like the Vishnu Tattvas. So the demigod's power and capabilities is limited, and they are all different department heads. So they don't interchange their capabilities and their areas of authorities. There is a very strong line dividing who's responsible for what. Therefore, one should never classify the Vishnu Tattvas or the plenary portions of Narayana, the personality of Godhead, in the same categories with the parts and parcels. So, literally, Prabhupada is saying you can't put the Prime Minister in the same category as the various ministers of the various departments. Similarly, you cannot put Vishnu and Narayana in the same category as all the other demigods because they are all different. If anyone does so, he becomes at once an offender by the name Pashandi. In the age of Kali, many foolish persons commit such unlawful offenses and equalize the two categories. So the biggest offense we can commit, Prabhupada is writing, is equating Lord Vishnu with the demigods. They are not the same. One is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the other are Jivatmas. So the minute we try to put other Jivatmas, although they are very powerful, on the same level as Lord Vishnu, it's considered an offense. An offense to Lord Vishnu. Such a person is called Pashandi. The separated parts and parcels have different positions in the estimation of material powers, and some of them are like Kala Bhairava, Smashana Bhairava, Shani, Mahakali, and Chandika. These demigods are worshipped mostly by those who are in the lowest categories of the mode of darkness or ignorance. Other demigods like Brahma, Shiva, Surya, Ganesha, and many similar deities are worshipped by men in the mode of passion, urged on by the desire for material enjoyment. So, the 5 deities that we are authorized to worship is Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Suryadev, Ganesha, and Mother Parvati. If at all you want to worship, of course, Vishnu also you can worship for material benefits, but Vishnu has the power to give you liberation as well. But those who are actually situated in the mode of goodness, Sattva Guna, of material nature, worship only Vishnu Tattvas. Vishnu Tattvas are represented by various names and forms such as Narayana, Damodara, Vamana, Govinda, and Adokshaja. The qualified Brahmanas worship the Vishnu Tattvas, represented by the Shalagrama Shila, and some of the higher castes like the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas also generally worship the Vishnu Tattvas. So generally, the Shaligram Shila is supposed to be worshipped when you are very, very pure because it requires some very strict adherence to codes and conducts. Highly qualified Brahmanas situated in the mode of goodness have no grudges against the mode of worship of others. They have all respect for other demigods, even though they may look ghastly, like Kala Bhairava or Mahakali. They know very well that these horrible features of the Supreme Lord are all different servitors of the Lord under different conditions, yet they reject the worship of both horrible and attractive features of the demigods, and they concentrate only on the forms of Vishnu because they are serious about liberation from material conditions. The demigods, even to the stage of Brahma, the supreme of all the demigods, cannot offer liberation to anyone. Hiranyakashipu underwent a severe type of penance to become eternal in life. But his worshipful deity Brahma could not satisfy him with such blessings. Therefore, Vishnu and none else is called Muktipada, or the personality of Godhead who can bestow upon us mukti, liberation. The demigods, being like other living entities in the material world, are all liquidated at the time of the annihilation of the material structure, which means even the demigods have to give up their life. They are not eternal. I mean, their soul is eternal, but their bodies are not eternal. They are themselves unable to get liberation, and what to speak of giving liberation to their devotees? The demigods can award the worshippers some temporary benefit only, and not the ultimate one. It is for this reason only that candidates for liberation deliberately reject the worship of the demigods, although they have no disrespect for any of them. So, when Daksha insults Lord Shiva and Sati Devi, his head gets chopped off. But I think by Veerabhadra. And then Lord Vishnu comes to chastise Daksha and tell him, you know, Shiva, Brahma, and me, we are all together managing this entire cosmos. You should never disrespect any one of us. So, no partiality in that way. We may worship Lord Vishnu, but that doesn't mean we dishonor Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, because if we do, we are offending the Supreme Lord. Although, simultaneously, we may be offending the Supreme Lord if we intend to worship Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma as the Supreme Personality of God. So, either way, we have to be careful. This brings us to Shloka 27. Rajastamah prakritayah
Rajastama prakritayah
samashila bhajanti vai
samashila bhajanti vai
pitribhuta prajeshadin
pitrubhuta prajeshadin
Shri Aishwarya Prajepsavaha
Shri Aishwarya Prajepsavaha
Rajaha,
Rajaha,
the mode of passion.
mode of passion.
Tamaha,
Tamaha,
the mode of ignorance.
mode of ignorance.
Prakrittayaha,
Prakrityaha,
of that mentality.
of that mentality.
Samashilaha,
Samashilaha,
the same categories.
of the same categories.
Bhajanti,
Bhajanti,
do worship.
do worship.
Why?
Why?
Actually,
Actually,
Pitra,
Pitra,
the forefathers.
the forefathers.
Bhuta,
Bhuta,
other living beings.
other living beings.
Prajesha Adin,
Prajesha Adin,
controllers of cosmic administration.
controllers of cosmic administration.
Shriya,
Shriya,
enrichment.
enrichment.
Aishwarya,
Aishwarya,
wealth and power.
wealth and power.
Praja,
Praja,
progeny.
progeny.
Ipsavaha,
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 so desiring.
so desire.
Translation, those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance
Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance
worship those in the same category,
worship those in the same category,
namely
namely
the forefathers,
the forefathers,
other living beings,
the other living beings,
and the demigods
and the demigods
who are in charge of cosmic activities.
who are in charge of cosmic activities.
For they are urged by a desire
For they are urged by a desire
to be materially benefited
to be materially benefited
with women,
with women,
wealth,
wealth,
power,
power,
and progeny.
and progeny.
So Prabhupada is writing here, there's no need to worship demigods of whatsoever category if one is serious about going back to Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.20 and 23, it is clearly said that those who are mad after material enjoyment approach the different demigods for temporary benefits, which are meant for men with a poor fund of knowledge. We should never desire to increase the depth of material enjoyment. Material enjoyment should be accepted only up to the point of the bare necessities of life and not more or less than that. So Prabhupada is writing, whatever God has given you, you should try and be happy and satisfied with it. Don't try to increase it unnecessarily, because if your basic requirements are covered, then be satisfied so that you can focus your attention on spirituality. To accept more material enjoyment means to bind oneself more and more to the miseries of material existence. It's like you're putting more bars in your prison cell and you're going to stay there for a longer time. More wealth, more women, and false aristocracy are some of the demands of the material disposed man, because he has no information of the benefit derived from Vishnu worship. By Vishnu worship, one can derive benefit in this life as well as in life after death. Forgetting these principles, foolish people who are after more wealth, more wives, and more children worship various demigods. The aim of life is to end the miseries of life and not to increase them. So by worshipping the demigods, whatever you get based on your successful worship, you are simply increasing your miseries. So only an unintelligent person will worship the demigods just so that they can increase their miseries. Temporarily, there may be some benefit for you, but ultimately your long-term misery is increasing. So that's not very smart. That's not very intelligent. For material enjoyment, there is no need to approach the demigods. The demigods are but servants of the Lord. As such, they are duty bound to supply necessities of life in the form of water, light, air, etc. So Prabhupada is writing, they are all department heads. They've been appointed as these department heads, so they better provide you nice sunshine, nice rains, nice weather, etc. But then, even to get that, we should worship Vishnu. One should work hard and worship the Supreme Lord by the fruits of one's hard labor for existence. And that should be the motto of life. One should be careful to execute occupational service with faith in God in the proper way, and that will lead one gradually on the progressive march back to Godhead. Lord Sri Krishna, when he was personally present at Vrajadhama, stopped the worship of the demigod Indra and advised the residents of Vraja to worship by their business and to have faith in God. Worshipping the multi-demigods for material gain is practically a perversity of religion. This sort of religious activity has been condemned in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam as Kaitava Dharma, meaning cheating religion. Religion that promises you if you worship this, you'll get this. If you worship this person, you'll get that. That's cheating religion. There is only one religion in the world to be followed by one and all, and that is the Bhagavata Dharma, or the religion which teaches one to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead and no one else. So that brings us to the last two shlokas of this section, which is indicating clearly that all of us should only worship Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. We should reject the worship of demigods. So that summary of that is in these two shlokas. Vasudeva Paravedaha,
Vasudeva Paravedaha,
Vasudeva Paramakhaha,
Vasudeva Paramakhaha,
Vasudeva Parayogaha,
Vasudeva Parayogaha,
Vasudeva Parah Kriyaha,
Vasudeva Parah Kriyaha,
Vasudeva Param Jnanam,
Vasudeva Param Jnanam.
Vasudeva Parantapaha.
Vasudeva Param Tapaha.
Vasudeva Paro Dharmaha.
Vasudeva Paro Dharmaha.
Vasudeva Paragatihi.
Vasudeva Paragatihi.
So you can see the repetition of the word Vasudeva. Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
the personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Paraha,
Paraha,
the ultimate goal.
the ultimate goal.
Vedaha,
Vedaha,
revealed scriptures.
revealed scriptures.
Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
personality of Godhead.
personality of Godhead.
Paraha,
Paraha,
for worshipping.
for worshipping.
Makhaha,
Makhaha,
sacrifices.
sacrifices.
Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Paraha,
Paraha,
means of attaining.
the means of attaining.
Yogaha,
Yogaha,
mystic paraphernalia.
mystic paraphernalia.
Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Paraha,
Paraha,
under his control.
under his control.
Kriyaha,
Kriyaha,
fruitive activities.
fruitive activities.
Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Param,
Param,
the supreme.
the supreme.
Jnanam,
Jnanam,
knowledge.
knowledge.
Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Param,
Param,
best.
best.
Tapaha,
Tapaha,
austerity.
austerity.
Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Paraha,
Paraha,
superior quality.
superior quality.
Dharmaha,
Dharmaha,
religion.
religion.
Vasudeva,
Vasudeva,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Paraha,
Paraha,
ultimate.
ultimate.
Gatihi,
Patihi,
goal of life.
goal of life.
Translation. In the revealed scriptures,
In the revealed scriptures,
the ultimate object of knowledge
the ultimate object of knowledge
is Sri Krishna,
is Sri Krishna,
personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
The purpose of performing sacrifice
The purpose of performing sacrifice
is to please Him.
is to please Him.
Yoga
Yoga
is for realizing Him.
is for realizing Him.
All fruitive activities
All fruitive activities
are ultimately rewarded by Him only.
are ultimately rewarded by Him only.
He is the supreme knowledge.
He is the supreme knowledge,
And all severe austerities are performed to know Him.
and all the severe austerities are performed to know Him.
Religion,
Religion,
dharma,
dharma,
is rendering loving service unto Him.
is rendering loving service unto Him.
He is the supreme goal of life.
He is the supreme goal of life.
So, in summary, for this section where Sutta Goswami is glorifying divinity or the supreme personality of Godhead, he is saying Vasudeva is everything. If you want material benefits, well, he's the one who's supplying material benefits, but he's allocating those responsibilities to the various demigods. And therefore, you may think I'm worshipping the demigods and the demigods are reciprocating with me. Actually, it is the Lord who has sanctioned everything that you get. If you are reading the scriptures, the purpose of reading the scriptures is to discover who is Vasudeva. If you're trying to practice Dhyana Yoga, the purpose is to realize who is Paramatma. If you're practicing Bhakti Yoga, the purpose is to realize who is Bhagavan. So ultimately, all of our goals merges in Vasudeva. Prabhupada writes that Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the only object of worship, is confirmed in these two shlokas. In the Vedic literature, there is the same objective, establishing one's relationship and ultimately reviving our lost loving service unto Him. So, our only objective is to find out who we are eternally connected to, and when we discover who that person is, that person we have to offer loving service. Of course, that person is Krishna. That is the sum and substance of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, the same theory is confirmed by the Lord in his own words. The ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to know him only. Veda is sarvair ahameva vedyaha. All the revealed scriptures are prepared by the Lord through his incarnation in the body of Srila Vyasadeva, just to remind the fallen souls, conditioned by material nature, of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So, why has Srila Vyasadeva come? He himself is considered a literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord. He is come to remind us who is Krishna. No demigod can award freedom from material bondage. That is the verdict of all the Vedic scriptures. Impersonalists who have no information of the personality of Godhead minimize the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord and put him on equal footing with all other living beings. And for this act, such impersonalists get freedom from material bondage only with great difficulty. We were discussing last week that there are two types of impersonalists. One category is called the Mayavadis, the other category is called the Brahmavadis. And the Lord says in chapter 12 that the Brahmavadis find great difficulty achieving liberation because the path itself is very troublesome. They can surrender unto him only after many, many births in the culture of transcendental knowledge. One may argue that the Vedic activities are based on sacrificial ceremonies. That is true. But all such sacrifices are also meant for realizing the truth about Vasudeva. Another name of Vasudeva is Yajna, sacrifice. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that all sacrifices and all activities are to be conducted for the satisfaction of Yajna or Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. This is the case also with the yoga systems. Yoga means to get into touch with the Supreme Lord. The process, however, includes several bodily features such as asana, dhyana, pranayama, and meditation, and all of them are meant for concentrating upon the localized aspect of Vasudeva, represented as Paramatma. Paramatma realization is but partial realization of Vasudeva. And if one is successful in that attempt, one realizes Vasudeva in full. But by ill luck, much yogis are stranded by the powers of mysticism achieved through the bodily process. Ill fated yogis are given a chance in the next birth by being placed in the families of good learned brahmanas or in the families of rich merchants in order to execute the unfinished task of Vasudeva realization. The Lord also speaks about this towards the end of chapter 6 in the Bhagavad Gita. If such fortunate brahmanas and sons of rich men properly utilize the chance, they can easily realize Vasudeva by good association with saintly persons. Unfortunately, such preferred persons are captivated again by material wealth and honor, and thus they practically forget the aim of life. This is also for the culture of knowledge. According to Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 items in culturing knowledge. By such culture of knowledge, one becomes gradually prideless, devoid of vanity, non-violent, forbearing, simple, devoted to the great spiritual master, and self-control. So this is the items of knowledge that are also covered in the Bhagavad Gita. By culture of knowledge, one becomes unattached to hearth and home, and becomes conscious of the miseries due to birth, death, old age, and disease. And all culture of knowledge culminates in devotional service to the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Therefore, Vasudeva is the ultimate aim in culturing all different branches of knowledge. Culture of knowledge leading one to the transcendental plane of meeting Vasudeva is real knowledge. Physical knowledge in its various branches is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as ajnana, or the opposite of real knowledge. The ultimate aim of physical knowledge is to satisfy the senses, which means prolongation of the term of material existence and thereby continuance of the threefold miseries. So, prolonging the miserable life of material existence is nescience. But the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence and to begin the life of spiritual existence on the plane of Vasudeva. The same applies to all kinds of austerities. So everything that is covered in the shloka, that the goal of performing austerities is to realize who is Vasudeva. The goal of reading the scriptures is to realize who is Vasudeva. Even the goal of material benefits is to discover that it is Vasudeva who's supplying you with all of that. So Prabhupada is just explaining each one in a paragraph. The same applies to all kinds of austerities. Tapasya means voluntary acceptance of bodily pains to achieve some higher end of life. Ravana and Hiranyakashipu underwent a severe type of bodily torture to achieve the end of sense gratification. Sometimes modern politicians also undergo severe types of austerities to achieve some political end. This is not actually tapasya. Tapasya must be done only for the pleasure of Vishnu. One should accept voluntarily bodily inconvenience for the sake of knowing Vasudeva, because that is the way of real austerities. Otherwise, all forms of austerities are classified as modes of passion and ignorance. So Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita and the purport, where the Lord talks about austerities in the mode of ignorance, and Prabhupada writes in one of the purports in the Bhagavad Gita, I think this is chapter 17, that austerities performed by politicians for the sake of a political outcome is actually tapasya in the mode of ignorance. Only the mode of goodness can mitigate the threefold miseries of life. Vasudeva and Devaki, the so-called father and mother of Lord Krishna, underwent penances to get Vasudeva as their son. Lord Sri Krishna is the father of all living beings. From Sloka 4 of 14th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, he is the original living being of all other living beings. He is the original eternal enjoyer amongst all other enjoyers. Therefore, no one can be his begetting father, as the ignorant may think. Lord Sri Krishna agreed to become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki upon being pleased with their severe austerities. Therefore, if any austerities have to be done, they must be done to achieve the end of knowledge, Vasudeva. Vasudeva is the original personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. As explained before, the original personality of Godhead expands himself by innumerable forms. Such expansion of forms is made possible by his various energies. His energies are also multifarious, and his internal energies are superior and external energies inferior in quality. They are explained in the Bhagavad Gita 7.4 to 6 as the para and the apara prakriti. So his expansions of various forms which take place via the internal energies are superior forms, whereas the expansions which take place via the external energies are inferior forms. When we come to chapters 3 and 4, ultimately everything is an expansion of the Lord. The superior expansions of the Lord are from his chit potency, and the inferior expansions of the Lord are from his maya potency. Ultimately, everything is coming from the Lord. The living entities are also his expansions. The living entities who are expanded by his internal potency are eternally liberated persons, whereas those who are expanded in terms of the material energies are eternally conditioned souls. Therefore, all culture of knowledge, austerities, sacrifice, and activities should be aimed at changing the quality of the influence that is acting upon us. For the present, we are all being controlled by the external energy of the Lord. External energy of the Lord here, Maya. And just to change the quality of the influence, we must endeavor to cultivate spiritual energy, which means if you want to move towards Sattvagun stage, then you need to start cultivating bhakti. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that those who are Mahatmas are those whose minds have been so broadened as to be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, are under the influence by the internal potency. And the effect is that such broad-minded living beings are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord without deviation. So the Lord frequently will send his pure representatives to help us along. Just because they have occupied a material body, we cannot see them as ordinary living beings. They are pure devotees of the Lord, and they are directed by the Lord's Yogamaya potency. Therefore, they are always engaged in serving the Lord without any deviation. And Prabhupada says that should be the aim of life. And that is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. No one should bother himself with fruitive activities or dry speculation about transcendental knowledge. Everyone should at once engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor should one worship different demigods who work as different hands of the Lord for creation, maintenance, or destruction of the material world. There are innumerable powerful demigods who look over the external management of the material world. They are all different assisting hands of Lord Vasudeva. Even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are included in the list of demigods, but Lord Vishnu or Vasudeva is always transcendently situated. Even though he accepts the quality of goodness of the material world, he is still transcendental to all the material modes. The following example will clear that matter more explicitly. In the prison house, there are the prisoners and the managers of the prison house. Both the managers and the prisoners are bound by the laws of the king. But even though the king sometimes comes in the prison, he is not bound by the laws of the prison house. The king is therefore always transcendental to the laws of the prison house, as the Lord is always transcendental to the laws of the material. I remember hearing that in the United Kingdom, the Queen doesn't need a driving license to drive. That means she can drive at any speed she wants. She can drive on the wrong side of the road because she is considered the ultimate authority. The Queen and the King do not need a passport to travel. So like that, Prabhupada is explaining how if you are the king, you are above the law because you are actually making the laws for others to follow. Of course, Prabhupada is talking about righteous kings here. Therefore, the king is always above the law. The law applies to all the other citizens. The king, of course, also being a judicious king, also is a law-abiding person. But sometimes he may violate the law for a greater purpose or for higher purposes of dharma. So in these 7 shlokas from shlokas 23 to 29, we have talked about the glories of the Supreme Lord, the glories of Bhagavan, Paramatma, and also Brahman, all in this single section of 23 to 29. So we'll stop here for the day, and we can discuss any of the shlokas, any doubts that you may have.